that, I do have a question for you because we were talking about initially some of these rookies along the defensive line. And Brandon, I don't know what your key matchup is, and you can give that to me later. But the key matchup for me, or at least the thing that I'm most interested in seeing, is the 49ers defensive line versus the Seahawks offensive line, because I think both of them have so many question marks. Obviously, the 49ers pour a lot of assets into the defensive line, but a lot of those assets are very young. Nick Bosa is the one constant, but they also, they traded for Huff. So there's a lot invested in that defensive line per usual. But on the flip side, the Seahawks have a lot invested in that offensive line. And I remember last year my bold prediction for the Seahawks when we did this behind enemy line show, but we did it during the offseason before the season started and just kind of got some NFC West predictions out of the way. And one of the things that I said is I said Seattle's going to have a top 10 offensive line. Now, I was very wrong about that, but I think my thought process was in the right spot, knowing that they had poured so many assets into it. I do think coaching hurt them as well. I believe that they're much better coach going into this season. So I think that's helpful. But also, once again, you poured another first round asset into the offensive line. At some point, like, this thing has to gel. So is it this year? Does it ever happen? Is it week one? I don't know. But to me, like, that's where the game is won and lost, is who can win that matchup, because there's so many question marks on our defensive line. There's so many question marks on your offensive line, tons of talent on both ends. Who can win that matchup? I'm really intrigued by that. Like, what are your thoughts overall with that matchup? How confident are you in the offensive line? I know that it's a lot of trepidation there. I remember when I said last year, hey, they're going to finish top 10, you looked at me like I had three heads. So now I got to know, like, how confident are you in that unit?
Way more confident than I've ever been before. And I think
Okay.
that
All
I
right.
think if I haven't unpacked this a little bit, I think that we all do this where we look at this like a Madden game of what's this guy overall and then him, and then give me a collection of five guys in the line that have good overall score and all the good offensive line, and we don't take into account the play calling, the sequence of plays, setting up defenses, commitment to the run. I mean, we didn't know we were going to throw the ball 70% of the time last year with Grubb. And you didn't land at Grubb because you just thought he was the most unbelievably best candidate out there. You landed on him because of the late hour in hiring McDonald, who you had to wait on because he was in the conference championship. So you came back this year and you did not going for the guy at the end of the line. That's all that's left. Like, you've gone through a party in the buffet and all that's left are those, muffins nobody wants to eat. It's like, well, I guess we got to just, God, that's tough to get down. This year we got to be at the front of the buffet, got to go find the really good coaching in Kubiak. Jake was talking about last night about the Saints and like them being so good out the gate last year in those first few games. And he got that team great in the running game, great as an offense from the jump. And that's a Saints team that is not a stacked roster. That was guy Derek Carr that had like 7-8 games left. And he's been kind of with half foot out the door anyway for a long period of time. And the offense only went down when the whole offense got decimated by injuries. I'm expecting with the preseason performance we've seen, with what we're hearing coming out of camp from him, that the part that I've underrated, and I think that it's just understandable that you do, is that coaching aspect and having guys in that are actually really good teachers and also have a scheme that fits really well. I don't know if you saw Mark Schlereth on a recent podcast, he was talking about this, but he had moments as an offensive lineman where you hit the defensive lineman and he'd run block on a pass play, not get down the field 4 or 5 yards. But, there's the difference set between I get in my
Yeah.
pass set and I'm launching at you. And the defensive line says, you can't do that. That's cheating. You can't be doing that. He says, yeah, I can't. I did it, MNFer. What are you going to do about it? And just that's just a little subtle thing, but it's stuff like that that's built into this system. And you guys have had the benefits of it for years that makes it so hard pre to post snap to determine whether it's pass or run. I think last time a lot of people, including yourself, could look at our Hawk offense prior to the play and go, pass, pass, run, pass. And then there was no under center stuff. There was no rollout action. It was all very rudimentary college offense, basically. So now that comes into play, and now the talent is right. Zabel's been legitimate from the jump. Lucas last year was still not ready to go, and he's now fully ready. He's had a whole off season. He's as strong as he's ever been. He's practiced throughout all of training camp. No limitations. Is it perfect yet? Is it like it still would we like it better? Yeah, but it's light years ahead in a lot of different capacities from where it was, and that does give me a ton of confidence. Absolutely. How about your offensive line? We got Pooney coming back. Seems like he's good to go. You've got 57-year-old Trent Williams out there at left tackle, but he's been practicing hard throughout the offseason, recognizing last year on the training camp, I need training camp. Doesn't matter if I'm an older player. That whole thing isn't fly. I'm an older player. You don't really need those days. I could just chill. I'll come back game one. I'll be like nothing. But how is the rest of the line shaking out? up against our Hawks here?
Well, the opposite, right? We just talked about all the assets that are poured into your offensive line. You guys have 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick. I mean, you guys put some assets in there. The 49ers are not that. They've got Trent Williams, who's the obvious first-round pick. You've got Pooney, who was the third-round pick. And then outside of that, you got UDFAs and fifth-round picks. And that's what the backups look like as well. And at some point, you kind of get what you deserve a little bit. The 49ers also, shout out to my guy, coach. He looked up the weights of all the offensive lines in football, and the 49ers have the 31st heaviest offensive line, which means they are a little light in the pants and they're not people movers. So it's interesting to see how Shanahan has his guys out there that have promoted and become head coaches or offensive coordinators, and all of them to a T are getting very different style offensive linemen than what he likes. And I think that that's them saying, hey, the system can still work if you just have really good players. It doesn't matter their weight or their shuttle speed. We'll figure it out. But you also do need people movers. Sometimes you got to run duo. You got to run power. You can't just do this outside zone all day long and trick people. Like you got to be able to protect your quarterback. So it is interesting. A lot of people are very high on Ben Barch starting at left guard. Aaron Banks is no longer here. He got a massive payday from the Green Bay Packers, but they're excited based off of literally a game last year before he
Mhm.
got hurt. I mean, this is not, we're talking about a player who's been in the league for many years, has done nothing, had a single good game, and then was hurt, and then was hurt again in training camp. Like the excitement for Ben Barch is, I don't understand it. I'm not saying he can't be good or won't be good, but to just assume that he's going to slide in and be better than Aaron Banks, looking at Aaron Banks and saying, okay, he didn't live up to expectation is fair, but he wasn't an awful player. And then to look at Ben Barch and be like, well, listen, you weren't a high draft pick, and then we're going to kind of overrate you based off this game, and then act as if there's no drop off between Banks and him or a possibility of a drop off is a little bit crazy. And then, we've got Trent Williams, who's fantastic, but at some point it's not as good, and we're seeing a slow decline. He's still one of the best doing it for sure, but he's no longer the best. He was head and shoulders the best, and that is no longer the case. And he's basically been guaranteed to miss 2, 3, 4 games every year for the last 10 seasons. So I doubt that stops at 37 years old. And the replacement in Jalen Moore is now with the Kansas City Chiefs. He got a big payday. And so they're moving Burford, who was a guard for him. A lot of people blame him for losing the Super Bowl because he had 2 free runners. He chose the wrong one, and Purdy had to get rid of the ball, which stopped him from scoring a touchdown and winning that Super Bowl. And now he's playing swing tackle. So that's your depth. It's not great. I mean, it's not great. And again, at some point, you gotta stop feeding us the BS as fans. We're getting excited over UDF players and fifth round picks because that's all that we're getting. If you're starving and you're fed a cracker and it's steak flavored, like, yeah, you're gonna be excited. But if you eat every day, crackers aren't gonna cut it. You need a freaking steak from time to time. 49ers, get us a steak. Can we get a first round offensive lineman for the love of God, please? So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
These crackers are making me thirsty.